Well, here we are again for one of our joint um, messages today. I have the honor and the privilege of introducing those of you who don't know Miriam to you. Miriam is joining us today as as more of an expert in the field around brain health, brain illness. Also, maybe you would think of it as like mental health, that kind of thing, mental illness. And so we're going to add her voice and her knowledge into this. But I wanted to, Miriam, have you introduce yourself and tell folks what you're up to these days.
All right. Well, I am a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Iowa. So I have a private practice that I run, and that's my main job right now. I was teaching at Ambrose for the last 8 years, but I'm now retired at the age of 40. And on top of being a mental health therapist, I also live with bipolar disorder. So the mental health, brain health stuff is something I'm well versed in personally and professionally.
Great. Well, thank you. So your practice is here in Davenport.
Mhm.
Are you full right now?
Kind of. I just started taking new clients again. And that may be, I may stop again. Therapists are very busy right now with COVID, which is wonderful.
Right.
It's great that people are getting help, but it's exhausting too. So right now I'm taking new clients. It comes and goes.
Right. I personally have my own therapist, and she is busier than she's ever been, and she's always full. So you have to like book in advance. Well, the reason I brought Miriam on today is to talk a little bit more about verse 32 in our reading today. And let me just pull that out because we're talking about healings, about Jesus's healing stories, and what that means for us as a community. And each week we've had different themes, whether it was our personal healing. Last week we talked about community healing, and our blessings box is up. And we are waiting for people to stop by. So if you are somebody who's in need of some food or a few little household things, we do have items there. So please stop by and help yourself. If you're someone who has a few extras, go ahead and drop those off. But we're talking today about, let me get to the right book of the Bible. Sorry about that. I was distracted as I talked. You really can't do two things at once.
Yeah, studies show that multitasking isn't really a thing.
It's really not a thing, especially with COVID brain. Okay, so we're talking about the healing of the two blind men. And then it says, while they were going out, a man, and this is my translation, says, a man who was demon possessed and could not talk was brought to Jesus. And when the demon was driven out, the man who had been mute spoke, and the crowd was amazed. When I did my research for the service, I found that this reading is actually not in the lectionary, which is part of the cycle of readings that we read every 3 years in church. And I thought, that actually wasn't a surprise, because this is talking about what we would assume at this point was really a brain illness, that this man, for some reason, had some sort of brain illness and that he was healed from. And they tend in the Bible, and even really into these days, often equate anything that goes on with your brain, whether it's epilepsy or do we say mental illness, a brain illness, um, as somebody who's possessed by demons, who has gotten is sinful, or those kinds of things. And it's put a real stigma to people seeking help, to talking about getting help. Um, I don't know if any of you have people in your family with various different kinds of issues along these lines, and it's not something that we readily talk about. And I think in church it's especially important to talk about it, because we're all created in God's image, no matter what we look like or how we dress or how we believe or how our bodies work. because God made us. And so even if it's not like everybody else, we're still in the image of God. I was reading an article that just happened to come this week from an online clergy source that I get, and it was from Reverend Dr. Sarah Griffin Lund. She put a few statistics out that in 2013, Christians were polled, and I don't know what the poll was about, but the one question was, would you rather have leprosy or mental illness? And people picked leprosy. She said before COVID, 1 in 4 people in this country identified as having a mental health challenge. And now, no surprise, about half of all people are reporting that they have depression and anxiety issues in the midst of COVID. We're still in COVID times. People are hurting, and people in our congregation are hurting. People watching this service and engaging in a worshipful time, maybe hearing us talk about this today, is hard because maybe you're emotionally hurting. Maybe you're psychologically hurting or spiritually hurting or even physically hurting. You can have physical aspects of a brain illness. We have a lot of burdens. People are having a lot of burdens of caring for family members, worrying about work, not having work, changing things, and all this extra stress and hardship has really laid a burden on all of us. So there are people who have a diagnosed brain illness or have one and have not been diagnosed. Miriam is going to talk to us a little bit about what those look like, what we might do about them, how we can get help, and that sort of thing. So Miriam, why don't you first of all just talk a little bit about this mental health thing we keep hearing about and mental.
Yes. So I asked Lisa before we started to refer to mental health, mental illness instead as brain health and brain illness. And this is a personal crusade of mine because we don't take mental illness very seriously. If you have mental illness or know someone who does, there's a good chance that you have often thought, well, can't I just try harder? Or can't that person just try harder? They're just faking it. We don't have physical symptoms that people can see. Absolutely, if you're really depressed, you know that it's so hard to move your body. There are times when I'm so depressed that washing my hair, lifting my hands above my head feels like way too much for me to do. So instead, I just don't wash my hair, right? It's really important to me as a practitioner, but also as someone that lives with bipolar disorder, that we start taking it seriously. It's nice that we talk about it more often. There's little memes, call if you need help, but they don't address the horrendous effect that mental illness, brain illness can have on the individual. So I'll stumble using mental illness and brain illness as well, but to me, I think we really need to start to address it as an actual illness. And even by name, I think changing the name of it would help with that.
Yeah.
So with the COVID stuff going on right now, like we just mentioned before, counselors, therapists, social workers, we're all incredibly busy because people are struggling. And I don't need to tell you why you're struggling because you know why you're struggling. The important thing to know is that on top of just the regular stress of life, we're experiencing, we call it COVID brain, COVID fatigue, and our brains are actually being affected in the way that we don't know what's coming next, right? We don't know when this is going to end, when we can stop wearing masks, when everyone will be vaccinated, will this go away? And so our brain is in this constant state of uncertainty, which could be considered trauma, right? So your brain is extra tired, it's working extra hard. So if you feel less than yourself, you feel worse than normal, it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you're not trying hard enough, it's not because you didn't exercise enough. Maybe you need to exercise, but that's a whole nother topic. It's because life is hard right now. And unfortunately, the way that our country handled this, we didn't give people the resources early on, right? Financial, mental health, school stuff, all these things. So we're just continuing to steam pile ahead with the same expectations that we had for ourselves a year ago. And it's not realistic that we can function in that same capacity.
Yeah. I think the other thing too that we talked about before we started recording was that there's a lot of tips out there, if you will, right now on how to help your mental health.
Mhm.
So maybe somebody doesn't have a diagnosable brain illness, but what you're talking about here is that we're all needing some help in the mental health area just
Yeah.
because our brains are being bombarded right now.
Mhm.
So there's kind of two pieces to the conversation. One is and somebody perhaps who's been living well with their brain illness, maybe that's exacerbated at this time and maybe they need a new diagnosis, a new medication, make some changes on that. I don't know if you want to speak to those two
Yeah.
different um,
Yeah. So there's a good chance that you might need therapy right now, and it doesn't mean that you'll need it forever. The same with, let's say you're really struggling with depression symptoms. Depression symptoms that you might not be aware of. We know that you're going to be sad. You might cry more. You also might have memory problems. That's a depression thing. Inability to make decisions. That's a depression thing. Um, there's all these things that we don't think about. It's what we call executive functioning disorder, similar to ADHD. So it affects the way you make decisions. And so you may need help right now, and it's okay to ask for that help right now. It's not a forever thing. You may be experiencing symptoms of extreme anxiety for the first time in your life. And let me tell you, if you haven't had that, you're going to know you haven't had it, because anxiety that comes out of nowhere is terrifying, and it takes over your body. And you might not know why you're anxious. And if you're just now experiencing that as an adult, especially, that's one thing I find fascinating in my job. Since I was diagnosed when I was 14 with depression and 19 with bipolar, I've grown up with these things, but I'm now having more clients come in as adults who've never had depression, and they want to die, and they don't have any hope, and they feel like failures, and that's scary to them. All right. So if you're experiencing that stuff, you're not crazy. You're experiencing symptoms of depression, and sometimes depression is temporary, right? What we call in the medical term acute. It's happening in response to things, right? Um, so, searching out for help. Um, One of the best ways to find a therapist, if you need it, is going to the Psychology Today website. Almost all the therapists I know in the area advertise on there, and you can see what insurances they take, what they treat. You can see a picture, a description of them, go to their website to kind of get a feel for that. I get a lot of my clients that way. You can also go to your insurance, health insurance website if you have health insurance, and they will give you a list of providers that are covered. Um, that's a really practical aspect of as far as finding help. Medication, your general practitioners can actually prescribe basic antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds if they're comfortable with that. You don't need to go in to see a psychiatrist if it's something pretty basic. If you think you might have something more like bipolar disorder, or the medication isn't working, then you need to get in with a prescriber that works on psych stuff specifically. But just your general practitioner can prescribe like a basic Prozac, or even a Xanax. The other thing that's really, really the most important thing for your mental health is sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, don't be afraid to go talk to your doctor. Some people think melatonin works. I've never thought that's worked for me, but if that works for you, you want to try it, go for that. Um, but you can also get a sleep aid. And I know another thing that I've been using for the last 2 years now with anxiety that I can get over the counter is a CBD oil. It's comes from the marijuana plant, but there's no THC in it. You're not going to get high, I promise. I get mine from a place in Moline called Splash, because my friend from grad school runs it, and they make their own, so I trust it. That has done wonders for my anxiety. Um, so those are a couple medication things. You're not going to get addicted to antidepressants. Okay, sometimes I have a teenager come in as a client, and they think they need antidepressants, and the parents are like, oh, they're drug seeking. They're drug seeking. There's nothing fun about antidepressants. Um, they're not going to get you high in any way, but they can definitely help stabilize you to get you to a point that maybe you were before COVID, but now you've slipped down a bit. Not everyone with depression needs medication, but don't be afraid to try it. It's legitimate medication that can help people save lives.
I think we need to put in a lot of supports for ourselves right now. And I would say that it is, it's a tool in our tool belt. If you've tried talking to people, um you feel like your sleep is okay, or you've gotten off caffeine, or you've tried different
Mhm.
things, go ahead and call your doctor and go in and talk to your doctor. And if you need some medication for now, everything is always just for now, and
Mhm.
see how it helps, because this is unprecedented times. We don't know what
Mhm.
this is going to look like. I mean, can you believe it's been a year? I mean, so I think back today, I was like, wow. I mean, like, what happened to this year? And
Mhm.
yet a lot of things happened. So,
Yeah. And I think especially this year anniversary, I'm kind of been dreading this as a therapist,
uh,
um, because I know that people are going to reflect on that. And so
mhm,
one of the things I put on my Facebook friend or Facebook page, my personal page, was go ahead and avoid all those year-long reflections if you need to. I don't watch like the Today Show or anything, but I'm sure they're doing like year in review, like they do at New Year's, where it's like these are all the things that happen. It's okay to turn that stuff off. It's okay to turn the news off. You don't need to always be informed.
right.
I years ago, and I'm a news junkie. I used to read the paper every morning in middle school before I went to school. But years ago, I switched from listening to NPR during the week to listening to ESPN radio because I knew that being that informed wasn't good for my mental health. So
Right.
if you need a break from those things, I know it's a tough balance between being an informed citizen and being okay. Right now, choose be okay. Now, another really important tip for COVID times is um, cut yourself some slack. If you need to order out more, if you need to pay someone to do your laundry, which people do that. I used to years ago, I had someone, if you can afford it, I know cost is a thing, or if tonight you're only going to have macaroni and cheese, or you're just going to have a peanut butter sandwich, or your house is a little bit messier than normal, or whatever it is, cut yourself some slack. Because remember, we're not functioning in the same world we were in the past. And it's okay to take care of yourself in different ways. Those expectations that you have for yourself of being perfect and productive, let it go.
Right.
I've heard before that no one's ever heard anyone on their deathbed say, "Oh, I wish I would have worked harder or cleaned more."
Right.
Right? And there's a lot of truth to that. Let yourself watch. I know I've started rewatching 30 Rock because it's funny and silly. It's okay.
Right. Yeah. Laughter is some good medicine.
Mhm.
Miriam, this has been really great. I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. I think it's been really, really helpful. It's soothing, it's calming also. And to have some resources at our fingertips is always really helpful. I like the Psychology Today, did you say?
Mhm.
Dot
And
com.
yeah, and that's a magazine, and they have a really good deal for all therapists to advertise on, and we all do because of that.
Oh, okay. Very
Yeah.
good.
Another
Um,
another resource, Lisa, I want to bring up that I've slowly discovered thanks to my younger clients is TikTok.
oh,
There's some great mental health information on there, and I just came across a hashtag last week called depression cleaning because if you have depression, you know it's really hard to motivate yourself to clean. And so I've been finding some neat information on TikTok lately. I'm actually going to start gathering a list of resources from other therapists as well. But if you're on TikTok at all, your kids are, do a little stuff there.
please do that. Gabe, we're getting you on TikTok for us. Gabe, set it up. Let's get you together with Miriam and we're going to start posting to TikTok.
Yeah, it's really, and the nice thing about TikTok is you set your own algorithm. It doesn't matter, but so that I only see positive things on there.
Oh,
I
nice.
I, I follow people that sing. I follow nice old people. I like elderly people, and then these mental health tips. And
Very
it's
good.
and there's a guy called Korean Dad. And if you're on TikTok and don't know about Korean Dad, he
Heard
is so he's a man and he will just say, "Hey, I'm your Korean dad," and then he'll tell you that it's okay to ask for help, or he'll say, "Let's eat an orange together." And the videos are 30 seconds long, but those little bits give our brains a break. We don't need to, go to the spa if we can't afford it. Just watch a cute TikTok video or YouTube
Right.
video.
Right. We're gonna once we're get able to get together, we're gonna teach some of our people a little bit more about their phones and their iPads.
Excellent.
'Cause
Yes,
we-
my 97-year-old grandma can now Zoom, and she's on Facebook, and it's because she lives in a retirement community in San Diego where they teach those things. So now this week she learned how to start her own Zooms.
Wow. We're
Yes.
gonna we're gonna aspire to that. Because we're all created in God's image, right? 97, 67, 37, 17, and 7. We all are loved by God. And it is important that we are aware of that healing that comes from our faith and from the energy, the everything around us. Healing doesn't always look the way we think it's going to be, but connecting no matter what is a big part of healing. Um,
And Lisa, I just want to say that the best thing I think the church can do with mental health, brain health, and any kind of struggles we have is make it the space where it's okay to talk about those things, where pride is left at the door. And I
yeah,
know that's hard. I mean, I think about my grandparents who were very Lutheran and they wore their suits, very staunch, presence.
right,
The church should be the place where we can feel free to wail and weep and mourn and grieve the things that are hard in life. And if we can do that together, that makes it even better.
right, right. That is so true. You can also reach out to the church office. You can go to our website at edwards-ucc.org and send a message to us if you need prayers right now. If you need some resources, we have resources at church as well. We also are going to put in our email next Tuesday a link so that you can take your own private mental health test. There's all these different areas. So if you think you have anxiety or depression, you click on that button and then you can, take a little quiz and find out kind of where you fall on that. And that's a resource we're going to offer there as well. And I'm sure we can. I don't know. I don't know if we're sure. And now I'm going to ask you right here. Can we reach people reach out to you, Miriam? Or
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. My email for work is Miriam at miriampritchardcounseling.com. Miriam's in the Bible, so look it up. But Pritchard is Prichard. There's no T. So Miriam at miriampritchardcounseling.com. And some of you have my phone numbers, and of course, Facebook is fine.
okay,
Um,
very good. Well, we'll have Gabe put that up too. Miriam, thank you so much. This
you
was
are
so
welcome, Lisa.
yeah, very good.